Hi everyone. We're talking today about reading for college success. If you do not have a notepad and pencil or pen in front of you, please pause the video right now and get some, because you will need to upload your notes from this video to the appropriate Dropbox in the class. These will be your pre-notes. We're going to see how you take notes on a lecture. Next week we will do some note-taking strategies, and then you'll take some post notes and we'll be able to see if we were able to improve that at all. So pause the video if you need to, get your paper and pencil ready, and then start the video again. So reading for college success. Reading is an incredibly important part of any life skill. Reading helps you grow your vocabulary, encounter new ideas, gain insights into the past, get immersed in a variety of cultures. I think that's extremely important for online students to understand. LSUA is becoming a much more diverse campus, and we are delighted with all the international students we have here. But I think our online students will miss out on that if you aren't truly engaged in reading not only your books, but your discussion posts in your classes for online. It's important to see the different viewpoints that people have, so that you can be exposed to ideas from other cultures, and so that you can get the opportunity to see how other people think about some of the important strategies you're learning in school. Active reading is something that requires you to engage with the material before, during, and after the reading process. So whereas when we read for pleasure, we just pick up a book wherever we are, we can start reading. Perhaps in high school, that's what you did, was just read a chapter from start to finish because those were the pages that were assigned. In order to read actively and get information from it that you can recall later and apply, you really need to engage with the material in different ways. That's what this is about. So there's 3 steps to active reading. First, you need to prepare to read. I know that sounds funny, but we're going to learn several steps are involved in that process. Read with focus so that you're not wasting your time, and so that you're actually engaging your brain and learning to remember, storing the information appropriately. And then review what you've read. And again, that's part of that process of being able to recall it. We do encourage that you remember to embrace reading. It is a central life skill. Your inputs for reading as a college student become our inputs for knowledge as a college student are reading, perhaps going to class, or in your online classes, watching video lectures or listening to audio files of the information you're expected to learn. But the effort, that middle red part there, that's where you're engaging with it. So that's taking notes, that's studying and reviewing. And then your outputs are going to be your performance on tests, perhaps the way you write papers. You may have to give presentations. And so it's really an entire process, and reading is critical to that. In order to prepare to read, so this is step 1 of our 3 steps of active reading. Preparing to read, they suggest you evaluate the amount of reading that you have to do. Literally look to see how many pages are in the chapter. Scan through it, flip through them. How many pictures are there? Get an idea, is it really a lot of reading? Is it going to take you a long time? Or is it something you're going to be able to sit down and do in 20 to 30 minutes? Sometimes you need to read material more than once. And the first time you actually pick up a book from a particular subject, you may not know if you're going to have to read it more than once. But you will begin to be able to estimate that as you go through some of these other processes. So previewing the material is really important. Read the preface or the introduction. There's an introduction page in each of the chapters of our book. And there's a little page that has bullet points of the kinds of things that you're going to learn in that chapter. Look through the table of contents. Again, in our book, there is a short summary of each chapter in right after the table of contents in an introductory part of the book. Read the chapter summary at the end of each page. Again, we have those. And you need to read all these before you actually start reading the chapter. Look for headings and key terms as you're flipping through. Read all the text that's larger and at a different color font. Read the words that are bold or italicized. Look at the material that's in the sidebars of the book to understand what it is they're trying to get you to comprehend. Ask yourself, personal, purposeful reading questions. So what are the specific questions you want to answer or that you expect to be able to answer when you finish reading based on the title of the chapter? And I know some of you are going, how am I supposed to know what I'm going to be able to answer at the end? I haven't read it yet. This is part of the process of engaging your brain based on reading the headings, based on looking at the keywords. What is it that you think you're going to learn? And this helps you focus on what's most important as you begin to read, because you'll begin to see whether or not those things you thought were most important or that you thought you'd be able to answer are actually emphasized in the chapter. Your reading questions can actually vary in complexity and should. As you do this and practice it, they will definitely be able to be more complex. There's some strategies for identifying or creating your purposeful reading questions. So a quick way is to look at either the beginning or the end of the chapter and see if the book has provided you those reading questions. You can create your own questions by drawing from the headings and the key terms, and that's another good way to be able to see or anticipate what it is that you're going to learn. And use your critical thinking skills. Think about what you're reading and how it applies. Is it valid? Is it true? Do you agree or disagree? Is that something that would work for you? Have you ever tried it? It might be that you've never tried it, and you should give some of this stuff a try. You want to use similar strategies with all of your reading materials. So again, estimate how much time you'll need, skim the first few paragraphs to get a sense of what the material will cover, scan any headings to look for key points, and to create purposeful reading questions. Next, we're going to talk about the steps in focusing while you're reading. So read with focus, and that includes being willing to mark up your reading material, making notes, annotating in your book if you have a physical book. Insert your own examples in your notes. Remember circumstances or experiences in your life that were similar. Draw symbols. Write quick summaries in your own words. Highlight and underline, but you want to do that with discretion. If you highlight everything, then everything looks important. So you want to try to begin reading, read the section before you make any marks, and then just highlight the main ideas or the things that seem to be the most important, and take notes. I can't emphasize this enough when you're reading college material. Take thorough notes if you're going to only read the material once. Take broad notes if you think you'll read it a second time to go through and fill in the details later. Think critically about what you need. Evaluate the quality and accuracy of what you're reading. Form your own conclusions as you are becoming more educated, as you are finishing, progressing in your college career. Think about the things you're being told. Identify whether or not you agree with them. Form your own conclusions based on your experience and your evaluation of the information. And then apply what you read to your own life into everyday situations. Don't be afraid to clarify confusing material. You want to invest time to expand your vocabulary, to look up words that you don't know the definition to. Dictionary.com, thesaurus.com are great resources online. I have been known to ask Siri. She doesn't always understand me. So, but finding ways, you have more tools at your fingertips than students ever had before. And so finding ways to get clarification on confusing things quickly is another way that it can help you understand the material better. Don't be afraid to ask a classmate or someone that you think might know the material. Look for help online. The Khan Academy has thousands of videos, and it is good information that may help you understand something because they explain it in a little bit different way. Don't be afraid to ask your instructor. You can boost your reading efficiency by actually setting brief reading goals. Don't sit and read for 2 hours and bang your head against a wall not getting anything out of it. If you've read for more than an hour and you're not understanding it, get up and do something different and come back to it later. Move around, go outside. Some people have told me reading in their car helps. Some people make reading in their car makes them sick. Please don't read while driving. That's not what I'm talking about. But finding a quiet place to get where you can concentrate, removing distractions, cell phones, television, radio, things like that. You can increase your reading speed by reading in chunks, by using cues, some of those headings or the purposeful reading questions that you had asked. They begin to help trigger or say, oh, I was looking for that. I need to pay attention to this. And it's okay to skim sometimes, but you do need to be able to take notes as well. And the last part is reviewing what you've read. So you can do that by reciting, by stating what you've learned or read out loud, a summary of it. If you're in a public place or the library, you can do that in your head. You can write down the central ideas from your reading using your own words, use short paragraphs or bulleted lists. But the challenge is to think critically and carefully about what you've read. Another part of reviewing and studying is looking over your notes between classes. In an online class, this is so important. All of our online classes for the 100% online degree programs are 7 weeks long. That's not a lot of time. You should be reading your notes and studying. We expect 12 to 15 hours for every 3 credit hour course every week. So if you're taking 2 classes, you should be studying or engaging with your material 24 to 30 hours a week because you're taking 2 3 credit hour classes. Sometimes it's just reviewing. Sometimes it's actually doing assignments. Sometimes it's listening to this type of video. Study your summaries. Discuss the main ideas of a chapter with a study partner. Recall the answers to your purposeful reading questions. Make up your own test. That's an excellent way. Remember, we're going to have a midterm exam on chapters 5 through 9 of this book. And so you should now be making notes on the time management chapter and this reading chapter. And as we go forward, because the midterm is going to be on chapters 5 through 9. Share your notes with a friend. See if they got different information out of it than you did. There are important differences to note when you're reading math and science type text versus books more like ours that are strategies for studying, or maybe even history books or English books. So when you are faced with scientific or mathematic type content, you want to budget your time wisely. Again, if you're not understanding, just keeping on doing the same thing is not going to make you understand. The important thing you can do is practice. Follow the rules. So that means when you learned in elementary or junior high about the order of operations and the rules for how to apply or balance equations, as you are reviewing and doing those things in class, it's practice, 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 practice. That's going to make that work. If you don't understand a symbol or a formula, you need to read about it. Go to Khan Academy, look in your book, ask your teacher. You need to understand what the purpose is of doing that and what it's called or how they symbolize it so that you can understand what the process is. Study diagrams in your book and models that they may have. And again, practice, practice, practice. You can make flashcards to memorize terms. That's worked really well for my daughter. That's her favorite way to study. It's also different if you're going to read journal articles. So journal articles are scholarly magazines that publish academic and scientific papers. Typically, they are written by professors or scientists who are describing the research that they're conducting. They may be sharing new ideas or theories. Sometimes they're summarizing broad research findings. And occasionally they're presenting original works such as poetry or short stories. So when you have to read a journal article and when you have research papers in your upper level classes, you will have to do this from our library. All of those, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of peer-reviewed journal articles that the full text article is available to you online. And all of those journal articles come in these sections. So there is an abstract, which is a paragraph summarizing the article. There's an introduction, which reviews the supporting research and describes the research question that they are pursuing, the hypothesis, if you will. They talk about their methods, which describes what the author studied and how they studied it. And there's a results section that describes the statistical analysis they used to answer their research question. And then there's a discussion, which is the written summary of the findings or answers to the research questions. So the recommended way to read journals is not necessarily front to back. Again, it's recommended you start with the abstract, you read the introduction, skip to the end and read the discussion so you can kind of get a feel for where things are. And then once you understand what the research results are, back up and read the methods and the results section understand how they came to those conclusions. That'll help make it make more sense to you typically. Again, journals are written primarily for other college professors, researchers, or experts in the field. There's also a different tact that you need to take if you're in online courses. You need to be prepared to do a lot more reading in an online course because you do not get as much lecture, although sometimes we do these types of videos. There's usually not as much lecture. You need to create your own schedule, and again, it's 12 to 15 hours per week expected per 3-credit-hour class. Make sure you can access your online materials. Learn how to mark up text online or print things out and keep up with them and mark and annotate on them. Consider printing out your syllabus. I strongly recommend your syllabus and your course calendar be printed at the beginning of every single class you take. Keep them handy. If there is a power failure or a server failure, you will at least be able to get to that, and you will be able to email your instructor because their contact information is in it. So you want to have that handy, available in a printed format or in a saved format other than only in the class. And then you need to read and respond to online posts. I mentioned earlier, one of the things you don't get in online class is that person-to-person engagement. The way that happens in your online classes is through your discussion boards and group projects if your faculty members assign them. Nobody likes to do group projects on campus or online. It's really important you read those discussion posts and you stay engaged that way. And don't do just the minimum. You're always welcome to do more than the minimum to get the grade. So have those discussions with your classmates. All of this is important because even when you get out of school, you're going to have to read at work. You're going to have to gather, analyze, and apply information. In your job, your supervisor is going to expect you to be able to take a piece of information or look up a report or a new legislation requirement for whatever your discipline is, and to make that work for the company, to keep the company in compliance and to keep the company growing and moving forward. It's important that you stay current, keep up with the latest in your field, know what the best resources of current information are for your field, and when you get to your upper level classes, your faculty members can tell you what those journals, what those articles, what those groups or professional organizations are. Join a professional organization and read the newsletters. Use reliable and reputable websites and stay up to date through social media, not just your friends' social media, but usually organizations will have social media accounts. You always want to be looking to expand your skill set. None of us these days is in a job where we're going to do the same thing year after year, even month after month. Technology is changing, the requirements of the jobs are changing, and the opportunities to make an impact on the world around us are changing. So pick up a book, browse relevant websites, seek out journal articles on topics of choice, but strengthen your reading skills now so that you can be the most effective later. And don't forget, take a picture of these notes or scan the notes to the discussion forum, to the assignment Dropbox for the reading notes. Thanks and have a great day.